There are a lot of seeds of division going on between both political parties within America's two-party system right now. And this has blossomed out into two different civil wars that are happening. On the left, you have the traditional Democrats. They're warring with their far left socialist wing, and the conservatives have their battle going on with the Israel first versus America first battle. On the left, the clash between established Democrats and the far left socialist wing it's not just about policy. It's about who gets to control and define the moral center of their party. One side frames it as they're pragmatists, they're guardians of the institutions, they're guardians of the American way. They fight for the little guy in their mind. And the other side poses themselves as revolutionary truth tellers who are exposing this systemic rot and calling for a redistribution of everything. And that's their symbolic war, and it's going to be over the legitimacy of that party. Who is the legitimate leaders? Who's the legitimate controllers? On the right side, you have the Israel first versus the America first groups, and that divide is actually quite a bit more volatile, right? It pits loyalty to a foreign nation against loyalty to our national sovereignty. And that's not just policy debate either. It's a symbolic test of identity, and it's a symbolic test of loyalty. Which first gets to define the movement? Will it be America first, or will it be the Israel first? Time will tell. But this fracture is pretty much an existential thing going on within the Conservative Party right now. Right? You've got the narrative entrepreneurs who are out there on both sides. Right? You've got the media, or actually, you've got them out there on all four sides. You've got the narrative entrepreneurs, their media figures, influencers, and your think tanks who are going to weaponize these fault lines, and they're going to do it for clicks, they're going to do it for donations, they're going to do it for money, they're going to do it for power. You have institutional betrayal, right? When a party's leadership fails to reconcile any contradictions that are going on, the outsiders, whether they be foreign or whether they be domestic, are going to exploit those vacuums, right? And then you've got foreign amplification. The adversaries have, for a long time, been using disinformation tactics to widen cracks and to sow divisional seeds within our democracy. But there's not always a single puppet master. Everybody wants to hope that there's a single puppet master, but that's not always the case. In this particular case, it seems as if the narratives are the puppet masters. This narrative warfare that is going on. Once there's a symbolic fault line exposed, it becomes self-perpetuating. It's a cyclical thing, right? Each faction digs in deeper, and they're convinced the other is a betrayer and that their point of view is the only truth. Both parties are fighting over who's going to tell the story of America's future. Both parties are fighting over who's going to control that story. The left frames it as if it's justice versus pragmatism, and the right tries to frame it as if it's sovereignty versus allegiance. But the puppet master are the narratives, and whoever controls this framing is going to control the legacy of America going forward. So it's kind of like a de facto four-party system that exists inside this two-party shell, right? The Democrats have their establishment wing prioritizing institutional stability and incremental reform. The progressive socialist wing pushes for a systematic overhaul and wealth redistribution. Well, on the right, you've got the Republicans, the traditional conservatives that are going to emphasize national sovereignty. They're going to emphasize America first and preserving our culture as a nation, where the pro-Israel and foreign policy hawks on the other side are prioritizing global alliances, especially with Israel, and global trade and being part of a global identity, right? And this is going to come out big time in the primaries and in the midterms and debates. All these factions are going to behave like they're separate parties. And they will seem that way because of their media echo systems and their echo chambers. And the symbolic language that they use is detrimental to everyone on all four party that's going on here, right? It's a masquerade ball right now. Once the general election looms, they lapse back into a two-party system, right? Media fragmentation, narrative warfare, generational turnover is a big thing. Younger activists on both sides are less loyal to a party and more loyalty to a movement. Turning Point USA is an example of that. Reupers are an example of that. And the left has their examples too, with their democratic socialists and the socialist movements and the Red-Green Alliance going forward. So in the past, these factions have always existed. If you think about Dixiecrats and you think about New Deal Republicans and New Deal Democrats and establishment Republicans versus the Tea Party and those kind of things. But it's more amplified today because of the world that we live in, because of social media. And everybody's trying to drive everything forward. One of the things that bothers me most about this whole aspect of everything is the narratives that are being used, right? Particularly on the right. We, on the right, should know better than to use terms like calling each other Nazis or calling each other anti-Semites. We should know better. We have just sat here fighting against the left for doing that very same thing to us. And then we're going to turn right around and within our own party, you're going to have people like Mark Levin calling Tucker Carlson a Nazi. Come on, right? We don't need that kind of division going on right now in the political world within the conservative party. Everything's too volatile. We just got it back, right? We're trying to get Marxism out of our system, out of our education, out of our culture. And you guys want to fight over Israel right now. I get it. I understand. We're going to do a big deeper dive on that in the future episode coming up, so make sure that you hit like and subscribe. But this narrative, this infighting, at least on the right, has to stop. We don't need this right now. We don't need to be jockeying for position just because everybody's starting to already think about a post-Trump world. Okay? That doesn't need to happen right now. We need to solidify. We need to get our country back on track. And if that does mean America first, even over Israel, that's a debate that can be had after we've put our nation back on solid ground, right? I'm not against helping Israel. I love Israel. I think Israel's a wonderful ally. I think the Israeli people are cooler than hell, at least all the ones that I've ever met, and whenever I was in the army, I even had a couple of training sessions with some Israeli soldiers, and those people are badass, and they're cool, and they have good family ethics, right? So we just need to stop on that right now, and we need to return America to solid ground. At least that's my opinion going forward. Thank you for listening today. I'm Uncle Sam. You're listening to Uncle Sam Saves America. I'm Uncle Sam.